So it seems that the Triple H era, creatively and bookingly, is off on a great start, especially for 2024. I mean, we got a taste of what it would be like in 2022. That was brief, and then 2023, it was kind of like you didn't know exactly what was going on, kind of like 50-50, if you will. And basically, long story short, as soon as Endeavor, took over, pretty much a lot of people's worries that, they felt something else was going to happen that was going to ruin everything. Of course, as I've mentioned before, pretty much that went out the window. And, everything that I felt and believed was going to happen, has happened. Triple H is running things officially, creatively and bookingly. Vince McMahon is put into a position to where he doesn't have, any creative say in what goes on and such. And, it's just a good time to be a fan. Honestly, it really is. It is a good time to be a fan. But what's even more intriguing, of course, is at the beginning of this year, we had I wouldn't say release, but we had the exit of Kevin Dunn, who was with the company since, around the first, a little before, but around the first, WrestleMania. And he seemingly always had a say in what happens, sometimes, like with certain talents and stuff, and how certain camera angles and certain camera angles and features should be done and all that. Even if he didn't need to have that power, he had it. In fact, he'd be like the main guy that Vince would go to for say in what happens, And the reason he really became, I guess you could say an enemy, an enemy, a disdained person of the IWC, of the WWE fan base, and all that. Basically the reason for that, where he basically, kind of, I wouldn't say officially, but unofficially got that role or got that, moniker, was because around 2012, when Triple H decided to rebrand NXT from a game show like obstacle course and all that to basically what it is today and what it started as in 2012. Any talents that would get called up that let's say Triple H was high on and felt could really benefit on the main roster and hold on for a second. Sorry about that. My mom's off today, so it's a little hard to do this because it seems her timing is a little, impeccable to where she will get up when I'm recording. It's like she wants to know what I'm doing. Anyway, though, like I said, he would gain this moniker, or at least this notoriety of seemingly taking people that Triple H was high up on in NXT, and when they get called up to the main roster, with a few exceptions here and there, he would basically sabotage them, is what he would do. I mean, like, for example, believe it or not, Vince McMahon might be high on them, and then when he goes to Kevin Dunn's like, nah, not going to work. You need to do this. You need to change this. Or, you need to go in this direction with them. You need to go in that direction with them. Basically, he would sabotage these talents that, again, surprisingly, Vince might consider being his next big main eventer or big name to push into the future. And Kevin Dunn was very notorious for that. In fact, when it came to women, the reason some women didn't get much time, like let's say, Becky Lynch, for example, despite her success story as the man and being who she is today, there were times that, Kevin Dunn would basically comment during a meeting, which, obviously he has to be part of, but shouldn't have say in creative talent or how talent should be presented and all that. Kevin Dunn would say, oh, she's not pretty enough, or she's not good looking enough, or she's not sexy enough. And it's like, people hear that and they're like, who is he to be a judge of character how a woman should be presented and such. So you kind of see that he had obviously an issue with Triple H. And I think one of the main reasons he had an issue with Triple H is because he knew Triple H was potentially, along with Stephanie, was potentially the heirs to the throne. They were the heirs to the throne. And, and despite the fact that he was with Vince since the expansion of the company into a global phenomenon, into the global phenomenon that it is today, he knew that, his time might be very limited if Triple H and Stephanie get control. Which is why I think a lot of people feel he did what he could to make Triple H look bad when calling up certain talent. I mean, Karrion Kross is a good example upon his first call-up. He was looked at as pretty much, he was looked at as pretty much a huge deal. Like, this would be a game changer that Vince would like. And yet when he came up, it's like, what the heck is this? Nobody knew. Like, nobody knew exactly what happened. But now you hear these stories, and you heard stories back then when he was still in power. It's like, or still had some power and everything, that being Kevin Dunn. It's like, oh, well, now we get it. And obviously some people would pinpoint to Kevin Dunn, possibly suggesting to Vince and Bruce Pritchard, hey, Triple H is out. He's not doing well. Let's take over NXT and turn it into what we want. Thus we had NXT 2.0. So, yeah, you could definitely tell that, there was things that, between Kevin Dunn and Triple H. Obviously, there was the disdain. Triple H obviously didn't like him. Other people didn't like him. And so now that we're in 2024 and he's gone, you're starting to notice certain changes happening. I mean, when Endeavor came in, pretty much they, straight out said in their own way to Kevin Dunn and anybody else that, was part of Vince's old regime that, hey, we're going to do things our way. We're going to let Triple H and his crew do things their way. And there's nothing more you could say, nothing you can do about that. And Mark Shapiro pretty much said as much in an interview on a podcast that, this is going to be the direction we go in. And if you don't like it, then, hey, maybe you shouldn't be here. Well, he didn't say it in that manner, but he basically stated that they were going to go in a direction, and that if certain people, and specifically, it was obvious he was talking to Kevin Dunn directly in this interview, if certain people don't like it, then maybe they shouldn't be here. And Kevin Dunn decided he didn't want to be there anymore. His current contract, with the company was coming up, at the beginning of this year, and he just said adios. And that was it. And everybody, believe it or not, was elated. I mean, yeah, you can give him credit for, being there to capture the moments, within WWE's history that are iconic and all that, and that's fine. But times have changed, and you got to change with the times. Especially if you want to continue this company and its legacy into the future for future generations to come. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. I mean, obviously you're seeing, these different promo-like settings, like with Raw and SmackDown, very similar to what, used to be seen in NXT, very NXT-ish, if you will. And apparently, according to Fightful Select, on the Patreon page, according to Fightful Select and Sean Ross Sapp, apparently, this is all because Triple H, Triple H basically allowed Jeremy Borash, formerly of Impact Wrestling TNA, who was brought on, during the times that the Hardys came back and the Woken Matt situation was happening. Apparently, he had Jeremy Borash in NXT, put together a team under Kevin Dunn's radar. That's right. Triple H apparently had Kevin Dunn put together a team, unbeknownst to Kevin Dunn, to one day supersede Kevin Dunn, basically take over. And that's what we've been seeing now. That's what we've been seeing now, with these on-location promos that are very reminiscent of what we've seen in NXT, the graphics and everything, pretty much very NXT inspired, sort of a hybrid of what you see with NXT now and what you saw in NXT Black and Gold. And, if this is not very telling to people that still doubt that Triple H is fully in charge creatively and bookingly, as well as in charge of like who runs things production-wise and all that, if this doesn't convince them that things have changed, for the better, then I don't know what will. But yeah, you could definitely tell, within a year, not a year, but within basically the past, what has it been like? October, November, December, within the past 6 months, past, half a year, since like, the latter half of 2023 and into, from the latter half of 2023 to the beginning of this year, I mean, it's obvious things have changed, and they've changed for the better. So for anybody that still doubts that, for any talent that may consider WWE as an option to return to or come to for the first time, guess what? That talent, man or woman, doesn't have to worry about those that used to be there that look down upon them. Now they can come back, with a what's the one I'm looking for? They can come back with a reassurance that they're not going to get, mistreated or looked down upon like they used to. So for anybody, sorry about that again, but like I said, if this isn't evidence that things have changed for the better, I don't know what does. I mean, yes, when someone like Bruce Pritchard gets put in charge, like let's say when Triple H is not there because he's on a business trip with Nick Khan to help sell the media rights for Raw, or to try to sell a city on a certain PLE. When Bruce Pritchard's in charge, is there some Vince McMahon familiarity there? Absolutely, because Bruce has learned from Vince, he's learned from Kevin Dunn, so there's going to be that familiarity of, okay, what I'm trying to say. Hold on for a second. Sorry, I got distracted again. Like I said, my mom's here. She's off today. It's Martin Luther King Day. That's why. But anyway, people, they might, look at when Bruce is in charge, as I was trying to say, and be like, well, obviously his style feels very Vince-like, very familiar, has that familiarity of Vince's, direction. And again, like I was trying to say, that is true, because he learned under Vince. He learned under Kevin Dunn. So when he's left in charge, even though things might already be set in stone and, he's got to go with what's set in stone, he's going to do it in a way that he's more relaxed with, he's more familiar with, much to the disdain of a lot of us, and I'm sure a lot of the talent feel the same way. Like, hey, they're going to put on a good show, and it probably turns out to be one of the best shows they've done, but the way it's booked, or not booked, but the way it's presented and all that may not be, something they enjoy or something they're thrilled with, because, it's done in a very familiar, not so favorable style, that they're trying to get away from. But the one thing I look at with Bruce, because apparently Triple H does, trust him, is Bruce is, young enough. He's basically around Triple H's age, maybe a little older. But he's basically part of this generation of, wrestlers, of talent that made a name for themselves in the late 80s up to the the not mid 2000s, but made a name for themselves from the late 80s up to like the mid 90s or late 90s. And they have an understanding of, okay, we do have to change with the times. But because they were trained in such, in a way that, basically is, more familiar with them. Hold on. Like I said, it's just the way he's trained. It was just the way he was, brought up in the business under, Vince, and the Vince and Kevin Dunn when he went to WWE. I mean, yeah, he had experience previously in Mid-South and all that, and learning the technology and everything there. And I think he even had a brief, I think he even had a brief stint in World Class, and he learned some things there. But when it came to WWE, where, like I said, from the late 80s to about the mid to late 90s, yeah, he learned under the tutelage of Vince and Kevin Dunn. But I think in a way, as crazy as it sounds, again, the reason, him and Triple H seem to have a respect for each other and a good relationship with each other creatively is I think he understands that things have to evolve. I mean, heck, when he was in Impact Wrestling as a behind-the-scenes person and an on-screen character, he understood things have to evolve. That's why, some of the things you saw in Impact, whether it was under the Global Force banner, TNA banner, or Impact banner, he understood that things had to change and change for the better. And, obviously he gets that here. He gets that with Triple H. He gets that with, the people that, that Triple H surrounds himself with. He understands that. And and I believe, and I said this before, in 2024, he's going to learn more. He's going to learn to, take what he's learned from Vince and Kevin Dunn, but mix it and combine it with what he's learning from Triple H and his crew. So that way when Triple H is gone, and there will be numerous times that will happen, and Bruce is left in charge, Bruce will do what will basically present Raw and SmackDown in a way that's reminiscent of a Vince style, but also has a strong influence of the Triple H style. So, again, if you're a fan and you were worried about, things not changing and all that, and you still felt person was still here and all that, like you still believe Vince is running things, still think, this guy's running things, you could rest assured that's not happening now. You can definitely tell the difference. You can see the difference. And if you're a talent, like I said, that is considering coming to WWE for the first time or return to WWE, because you have a resurgence you've had a resurgence in your career outside of the company, then to me, you don't have nothing to worry about. You are reassured that things will be, things are going to be for the better. That's really all I can say, and we'll just see what the rest of 2024 has to offer. But yeah, you can definitely tell the difference between the Vince regime and the Triple H regime, and why people prefer the Triple H regime over the Vince one, and why 2024 is definitely a year that, a lot of fans will be able to rest assured that things are not what they used to be. But let me know what your thoughts are, and I'll talk to you later.